Hello! In this video, we are going to talk about the parts of our orchestral string instruments. That will be our violin, viola, cello, and bass. So starting off here, at the very top, we have this nice curled piece of wood. This is called our scroll. And this is something that is going to be common across all of our instruments. Just below our scroll though, our violins, violas, and cellos, we have these pieces that are sticking off to the sides. These are called our pegs, and this is where our strings are going to attach, so that way we can tighten and loosen them as we are working our way through our instruments. What we'll see on bass though, is these are actually going to be pointing back towards us, and they're going to have a little gear here. And so instead of calling them pegs, we're going to call them the tuning machine. So violin, viola, and cello, pegs. Bass, with it pointing back towards us, is going to be a tuning machine. All right? Then, this area where the pegs all come together and hold our strings looks like a box. And so if our pegs are in a box, we call it the peg box. Then, just below our peg box, we're going to see this tiny little raised piece of wood right there that's pushing our strings up just off of the next part. So this little piece of wood that's just a little bit higher is called the nut. And the nut helps keep our strings off of our next piece. This next piece is this black piece of wood that sits just on top here. And since this is where our left hand fingers are going to be pressing down, we are going to call it the fingerboard, because that's where our fingers are going to go. On the other side of the fingerboard is this natural looking piece of wood. This is called the neck. And on our violins and violas, we'll see that the neck is shorter, but then on our cello and bass, the neck is going to be much longer. And that's because of our different string sizes. So fingerboard, on the back, neck. Our next part, as we move down, we have our sloped parts here. These are called our upper bouts because they are higher up on the instrument when we are holding it like such. As we come down from our upper bouts, we're looking at the side of our instrument here. This piece of wood that goes in between our bouts is called a rib, kind of like we got here on the sides. So this is our rib, and the rib actually goes all the way around our instrument, all the way back up to where the neck comes in. And then we have these little parts that are cut away here. And if we turn it sideways, it looks like the letter C. So what this is going to be is a bout, but this is going to be our C bout. Letter C bout. As we come down a little bit further, we have these lower parts, these lower curved pieces that look kind of like our upper bouts. But if we have our upper bouts and our C bouts, then these are going to be our lower bouts because they're down on the bottom part of our instrument. Then, violins and violas, for you only, we have this piece of plastic, wood, or something similar that's going to be sitting here on the bottom. If you're looking at it like this, it's going to be on the bottom left side. This is called the chin rest because when you're holding your instrument, your chin is going to rest on it. This is our chin rest. Remember, this is violin and viola only. All right. Then, as we come down a little bit further to the bottom of our bouts here, for violins and violas only, we are going to have this little piece of wood that is sticking out of our lower bout. This is called the button. Easy to remember because it looks like a little button right there. And as we come back around the part of our instrument here, this whole part where all of our stuff is sitting, we call that the top of our instrument, the top. Then, after we've gone through our strings, of course, we should all have 4 strings on our instrument. We have a piece of wood here that is balanced nicely. Should be pretty vertical there. And what this little piece of wood is here that's holding up our strings is called the bridge because it's bridging this gap here. All right, so we've got that nice little space there, no fingerboard, nothing over here until we get to this other part. we have our bridge. As we come down from our bridge, we see that it ties into this piece here, this black piece. Some of you may have it as a brown piece, but this piece here is called the tailpiece. And our tailpiece is what connects to the button. But then, what we also have for violin, viola, and cello, we have these little stubs down here where our strings come into the tailpiece. And these are called our fine tuners. So basses, you won't have this, but violin, viola, and cello, you most all will have fine tuners. And we use these to turn and change the note of our strings just a little bit to make sure that we are in tune. Then, lastly here for our violins and violas, well actually for everyone, sorry. For everyone, we have these nice fancy looking holes that have been carved out of our instrument, and these are our sound holes because this is where a lot of our sound is going to be coming out. So our sound holes there. So that takes us through all of our violin viola stuff, but our cellos and basses have something slightly different here. If we look down on the bottom where our button would be, we actually have this larger contraption. This one has a pointy end, but some of them will have a more rounded end or a rubber tip. And what this is a piece of metal that'll come out of the instrument that we can use to adjust the height, and we can tighten it down from there. So this piece of metal here, though, is called the end pin. All right, so this is just cello and bass. So cello and bass, no button, but you do have an end pin. And our tailpiece actually supports itself on the end pin instead of the button. So violin and viola, button, cello, bass, and end pin. All right, that should be it.